Jack winced as he applied the last of his medkit's antiseptic to the gash on his forearm. The pod's medical supplies were minimal, designed for emergency use until proper evacuation. He glanced at the pod's crumpled communication array and sighed. No one would be receiving his distress signal anytime soon. The alien forest surrounded him with sounds he couldn't identify, chittering calls that rose and fell like questions, the rustle of something large moving through undergrowth several meters away. Jack's hand instinctively moved to his sidearm, the familiar weight of the plasma pistol offering small comfort in this unfamiliar world. Assess the situation. Adapt, overcome, he muttered, reciting the mantra drilled into every Terran Space Marine. His atmospheric readings showed oxygen levels slightly higher than Earth standard, with trace elements his suit couldn't identify. Breathable, but for how long? Jack removed his damaged helmet, taking his first unfiltered breath of alien air. It tasted sweet, almost like cinnamon with an undertone of ozone. The twin suns of this system were setting rapidly, casting long purple shadows through the forest canopy. Temperature readings indicated a swift drop coming with nightfall. Jack needed shelter, and the pod's compromised hull wouldn't suffice. He gathered what supplies remained intact: emergency rations, filtration tablets, the basic survival kit, and his tactical gear. The neural mapping unit was undamaged, thankfully. If he could find elevated ground, he might be able to create a rudimentary topographical map of the surrounding area. As darkness descended, the forest transformed. Vegetation that had seemed ordinary in daylight now glowed with soft bioluminescence. Flowers unfurled to reveal centers that pulsed with gentle blue light. Vine-like structures hanging from trees emitted a golden glow that illuminated the forest floor in patches. "Beautiful," Jack whispered, momentarily forgetting his predicament. His training reasserted itself quickly. Beauty on uncharted worlds often concealed dangers. A sound caught his attention, rhythmic and deliberate, unlike the random noises of wildlife. Jack crouched, engaging his suit's audio enhancement. Music. Unmistakably music, carried on the breeze from the direction of the lights he'd spotted earlier. Intelligent life meant potential help, or potential threat. Jack checked his translation module, standard issue for all deep space personnel. It contained baseline algorithms for over 3,000 known non-human languages, with adaptive learning capabilities for new ones. The lights grew brighter as Jack approached, moving silently despite his injuries. The forest thinned, revealing a clearing ahead. Jack dropped to his stomach at the edge of the tree line, using the enhanced vision mode of his tactical visor to observe from a safe distance. What he saw made him forget protocol entirely. The clearing contained structures unlike any alien architecture he'd encountered in his 12 years of service. Buildings that seemed grown, rather than built, rose from the ground in graceful spirals, their surfaces pulsing with the same bioluminescence as the forest plants. Pathways of smooth stone connected them, curving in patterns that somehow felt mathematical. But it was the inhabitants that truly froze Jack in place. Humanoid figures moved through the village, their skin shifting with waves of color that rippled across their bodies. The males, at least Jack assumed they were males based on their build, wore elaborate robes covered in intricate patterns that seemed to move in the firelight. The females wore nothing at all. Jack adjusted his visor, certain he was misinterpreting what he saw. But the enhancement only confirmed it. The female inhabitants moved through the village without clothing, their bodies instead surrounded by a subtle, shimmering field that distorted the air around them, like heat waves above hot pavement. "What the hell have I found?" Jack whispered to himself, unaware that his presence had already been detected by senses far more attuned to their environment than his own. "Remain where you are, visitor from the stars." The words flowed into Jack's mind rather than his ears, causing him to jolt upright from his concealed position. His translator module flickered with activity, struggling to process the unusual input method. The hunting party emerged from the tree line with fluid grace, moving in perfect unison. 5 Luminians, 3 males in their ornate robes and 2 females surrounded by their shimmering fields, approached in a semicircle formation. Jack noted with professional appreciation that their positioning was tactically sound, giving them multiple angles of approach while maintaining clear escape routes. Zephyr, the apparent leader, stepped forward. His skin pulsed with amber waves that emphasized the mathematical patterns embroidered on his ceremonial attire. "Your thoughts are chaotic, but not hostile," he communicated, the translator finally adapting to the telepathic speech. "You are injured and alone." Jack slowly raised his hands, universal symbol of peaceful intent. "My name is Lieutenant Jack Frost of the Terran Space Marines. My ship was attacked, and I escaped in a life pod. I mean no harm to your people." The females exchanged glances, their bioelectric fields briefly connecting in what Jack realized must be a private communication. One of them, her field shifting between deep violet and azure blue, approached with a cautious curiosity that reminded Jack of a scientist examining a new specimen. "Your mind is shielded," she communicated directly. "We sense only surface thoughts. This is unusual." Jack's tactical training kicked in. Information was valuable currency in first contact scenarios. "Humans value privacy of thought," he explained carefully. "We communicate through spoken language and physical gestures." The Luminians displayed ripples of color that Jack's translator interpreted as surprise and fascination. Zephyr gestured toward the village. "The matriarch must meet you. This is unprecedented in 7 generations." The group escorted Jack into the settlement, where his appearance caused a sensation. Luminians emerged from their spiral dwellings, their skin flickering with colorful patterns of excitement and apprehension. Children, smaller versions of the adults with particularly vivid color displays, darted between buildings to catch glimpses of the stranger. Jack maintained his composure through years of discipline, but couldn't help his discomfort when interacting with the unclothed females. His translator registered his physiological responses and helpfully flashed a cultural note. "Subject experiencing cultural dissonance. Recommend contextual adaptation." The female scientist who had approached him earlier noticed his discomfort. Her bioelectric field shifted to a calming green pattern. "Your discomfort is understandable. You perceive absence where we have presence." She gestured to her shimmering field. "This is Shayla, my interface with the world. More protection than any fabric could provide, and far more useful." They arrived at the central structure, larger than the others, and spiraling higher toward the jewel moons now visible in the darkening sky. A circle of glowing stones marked the entrance, each pulsing in sequence. Inside, the matriarch awaited. Unlike the others, Lyra's skin displayed minimal color fluctuations, maintaining a steady pearlescent glow that reminded Jack of the nacre inside seashells. Her bioelectric field extended further than the others, filling the chamber with subtle energy that made the fine hairs on Jack's arms stand up. "Human," she communicated, the word carrying layers of meaning the translator struggled to convey. "Your arrival was foretold in the pulse patterns of the crystal forests last season." She approached Jack with dignified grace. "Show me how your kind greets those who offer sanctuary." Jack hesitated, then extended his hand in the universal human gesture of peaceful greeting. "We shake hands to show we carry no weapons," he explained. The matriarch studied his outstretched hand for a moment, then extended her own. As their fingers touched, Jack gasped. For a brief instant, his mind expanded beyond his body, experiencing the village, the forest, the planet itself, as an interconnected living system. "Welcome to Lumina," the matriarch said, as Jack struggled to regain his composure. "Your journey has only just begun." Jack sat cross-legged on a cushion woven from fibers that seemed to adjust to his body temperature, keeping him perfectly comfortable despite the cool evening air. 3 days had passed since his arrival, and the Luminians had provided him with a dwelling, a small spiral structure at the edge of the village that pulsed with gentle light in rhythm with his heartbeat. Aria, the female scientist who had taken particular interest in his case, sat opposite him. Her bioelectric field shimmered with patterns that Jack was slowly learning to interpret. Rapid ripples of blue indicated curiosity, while golden spirals suggested excitement. "Your species covers itself for protection, but also for meaning," she observed, studying the military insignia on Jack's uniform. "These symbols tell others about your function in your society." Jack nodded. "Rank, unit, specialization. They help maintain order in chaotic situations." He hesitated before asking the question that had puzzled him since arrival. "Why do only your males wear clothing?" Aria's field fluctuated with what Jack now recognized as amusement. "Our evolution diverged. Males developed pigmentation patterns for communication, but lacked the neural capacity to generate Shela. What you call our bioelectric field. The garments they wear serve as external memory storage and status indicators." She gestured to a male passing by, his robe covered in intricate patterns. "See how the designs shift. They're recording and processing data from the environment." "So the females, Shela, does the same thing, but it's biological rather than technological?" Jack asked, beginning to understand. "Precisely. It protects us from environmental harm, regulates our body temperature, filters toxins, and connects us to the planetary consciousness." Aria's field brightened. "May I demonstrate?" At Jack's nod, she extended her hand. When their fingers touched, Jack felt a tingling sensation as her bioelectric field briefly encompassed him. Suddenly, he could sense the heartbeats of everyone in the village, feel the slow growth of plants beneath the soil, even taste the approaching weather pattern. A light rain due in approximately 6 hours. "That's incredible," Jack whispered as she withdrew her hand, and the sensations faded. "Our scientists would give anything to study this." Aria's field darkened momentarily. Previous visitors from the stars have shown similar interest, not all with benevolent intentions. Jack leaned forward. "You've had contact with other species before." 3 distinct civilizations in our recorded history. The most recent visitors came 8 generations ago. They harvested minerals from our northern continent and departed. Her field fluctuated in a pattern Jack hadn't seen before. Since then, the crystal forests have been diminishing. The military officer in Jack immediately recognized a potential threat pattern. Did they say they would return? They spoke of a resource cycle that would bring them back when the harvest was optimal. Aria explained. "Our astronomers have been monitoring unusual activity in our outer system for the past lunar cycle." Jack's mind raced. The pirates his squad had been pursuing had been raiding remote systems for rare minerals. Could they be connected to these previous visitors? A chime sounded through the village, a summons to the evening gathering. As they walked toward the central plaza, Jack noticed Zephyr approaching with a ceremonial container. The male's robes displayed patterns more complex than any Jack had seen before. "The matriarch has requested your presence at the knowledge exchange," Zephyr explained, opening the container to reveal a small crystal suspended in a clear fluid. This is a memory shard from our archives. It contains images of the previous visitors. Jack looked at the crystal, then at Aria, whose field now pulsed with concern. "I need to see those images," he said, his soldier's instincts on high alert. "I think I might know who your visitors were, and why they're coming back." The memory crystal revealed exactly what Jack had feared. The holographic images projected from the shard showed spacecraft with the unmistakable asymmetrical design and scarred hulls of the Blackridge Syndicate. The same pirate faction his team had been dispatched to intercept. Their leader, a cybernetically enhanced human named Darius Vex, appeared in several negotiations with previous Luminian elders. "These are the same pirates who attacked my ship," Jack explained to the assembled council. "They're not simple traders. They're criminals who strip planets of valuable resources and leave ecological devastation behind." The council chamber's bioluminescent walls pulsed with disturbed patterns as the Luminians processed this information. Matriarch Lyra's steady glow dimmed slightly. "Why would they deceive us about their intentions?" asked one elder, his robes displaying patterns of confusion and distress. "Resources," Jack stated flatly. "Something on Lumina is valuable enough to warrant multiple return visits." He turned to Aria. "You mentioned crystal forests diminishing. Can you show me where they harvest?" The next morning, Jack and Aria travelled to the northern reaches of the settlement. She led him to a plateau overlooking a valley that should have been filled with the bioluminescent crystal formations he'd seen throughout the forest. Instead, large sections had been systematically excavated, leaving behind empty depressions in the earth. Jack knelt to examine the extraction pattern. Precision mining. They're being careful not to draw attention. He used his tactical scanner to analyze trace elements in the soil. These readings are off the charts. The crystals contain concentrations of element 142, quantum stabilized xenorate. It's incredibly rare and essential for advanced FTL drive systems. Aria's bioelectric field fluctuated with distress. These crystals are nodes in Lumina's neural network. They help regulate the planetary consciousness that connects all life here. She placed her hand on an intact crystal formation, her field synchronizing with its pulsing light. "We've been experiencing disruptions in the collective consciousness, gaps in the shared awareness. Now I understand why." Jack's scanner suddenly picked up energy readings from beyond the ridge. "Someone's here," he whispered, pulling Aria behind a cluster of crystal formations. They crested the ridge cautiously, and Jack's suspicions were confirmed. Hidden in the adjacent valley, camouflaged with terrain-matching technology, sat a mining operation far more extensive than the Luminians realized. Automated harvesters carved precisely into the crystal formations, extracting the core material and leaving the outer shell intact, a clever method to conceal the extent of the theft. "They're not just taking samples," Jack said grimly. "They're systematically looting your planet's neural network. At this rate, they'll cause catastrophic damage to Lumina's ecosystem." A sudden movement caught Jack's eye. Two armed guards in Blackridge tactical gear patrolled the perimeter of the operation. Their weapons were military-grade, far more firepower than necessary for a simple mining expedition. "We need to return to the village immediately," Jack whispered, pulling Aria back from their observation point. "This isn't just mining. They're establishing a forward base." As they retreated, Jack's military training assessed their options. The Luminians were a peaceful species with no concept of warfare. The pirates outnumbered him and possessed superior firepower. Direct confrontation would be suicide. But as he glanced at Aria, Watching her bioelectric field pulse with determination despite her fear, an idea began to form. The Luminians might lack weapons, but they possessed something potentially more powerful. A connection to their planet that the pirates couldn't possibly understand or anticipate. "Area," Jack said as they hurried back toward the settlement. "I need to know everything about how your bioelectric fields interact with the crystal network. I think I know how we might be able to stop them." The council chamber hummed with nervous energy as Jack presented his findings. The matriarch's normally steady glow flickered with concern as the full implications became clear to the assembled elders. "The pirates aren't just taking resources," Jack explained, projecting a rough map he'd created of the mining operation. "They're establishing infrastructure for a permanent outpost. Based on their excavation patterns, I estimate they've been here for at least 3 lunar cycles." "Why would they need a permanent presence?" asked Zephyr, his robes displaying patterns that Jack had come to recognize as strategic analysis. "Control," Jack said simply. "Once they've established a foothold, they can expand operations and potentially claim the entire planet as a mining colony. I've seen it happen on other worlds." Aria stepped forward, her bioelectric field pulsing with intensity. "There's something else you should know," she said, addressing both Jack and the council. "The crystals they're harvesting don't just connect our consciousness. They regulate the planetary ecosystem. If too many nodes are removed, Lumina's atmosphere could become unstable." Murmurs rippled through the council. The matriarch raised her hand for silence. "Lieutenant Frost," she said, using Jack's military title for the first time, "you have experience with these raiders. What course of action would you recommend?" Jack considered carefully before answering. "On my world, we would meet force with force, but you don't have weapons, and I'm just one soldier." He looked at Aria, remembering their earlier conversation. "However, you have something they don't understand, your connection to the planet itself." Aria's eyes widened with realization. The resonance network. She hurried to the center of the chamber, where a model of the planet floated in holographic display. Her bioelectric field extended to interface with it, and the projection shifted to show glowing lines connecting various crystal formations across Lumina's surface. "The crystals form a planetary network that we can access through our Shela," she explained to Jack. "When properly synchronized, we can induce resonance changes in the crystal formations." Jack leaned forward, intrigued. "What would that do?" "At minimum, it would disrupt their mining equipment," Zephyr interjected, his robes displaying calculations faster than Jack could follow. "At maximum, it could trigger a feedback loop in any technology using harvested crystals." "A non-violent defensive measure," Jack mused, impressed. "But to coordinate something like that, you'd need—" "The Temple of Resonance," the matriarch finished. "An ancient structure built at the convergence point of the planet's major crystal veins. No outsider has ever been permitted there." She fixed Jack with a penetrating gaze, her pearlescent glow intensifying. "Until now." Later that evening, Jack found himself in Aria's laboratory, surrounded by equipment that seemed both biological and technological in nature. She placed her hands on a pulsing crystal formation, and her bioelectric field expanded dramatically. "For this plan to work, you'll need to understand our connection to the planet on a deeper level," she explained. "I've been developing an interface that might allow a non-Luminian to experience our collective consciousness." She presented Jack with what appeared to be a circlet woven from living crystal fibers. "This should temporarily enable you to sense the resonance network." Jack hesitated only briefly before placing it on his head. Immediately, his consciousness expanded outward, connecting to thousands of nodes across the planet's surface. He gasped as his awareness stretched beyond anything human senses could normally perceive. "This is incredible," he managed, overwhelmed by the input. Through the network, he could sense distant crystal formations, and the damage being done to them by the pirate mining operation. The planet itself seemed to be in pain. When he removed the circlet, Jack's expression had hardened with resolve. "We need to move quickly," he said. "The pirates are accelerating their extraction. How soon can we reach this temple of resonance?" Aria's bioelectric field pulsed with determination matching his own. 3 days' journey through the crystal forests. We'll need to bring others whose Sheila fields are strong enough to establish the resonance cascade. "Then we leave at dawn," Jack said, his military training seamlessly integrating with this new approach to conflict resolution. "And we'll need to stay undetected. If the pirates realize what we're planning—" "They won't," Aria assured him, her field briefly touching his arm with a comforting warmth. "The crystal forests themselves will hide our passage." The journey through the crystal forests tested Jack's endurance in ways his military training never had. The expedition group, consisting of Jack, Aria, Zephyr, and 4 other Luminians with particularly strong bioelectric fields, moved deeper into territories where the crystal formations grew so dense they created natural labyrinths of light and energy. On the second day, as they rested beside a pulsing crystal outcropping, Aria approached Jack with a small container of what appeared to be luminescent liquid. "You're struggling to maintain our pace," she observed, her bioelectric field showing concern. "Your physiology isn't adapted to the increasing crystal resonance as we approach the temple." Jack nodded, hiding his exhaustion poorly. "The interface helps me sense the network, but it's draining, like running multiple combat simulations simultaneously." Aria offered him the container. "Our bioengineers created this for you. It's a temporary biomimetic field generator, adapted from studying your genetic structure." Jack looked at the shimmering fluid skeptically. "What will it do?" "It will create a limited version of Sheila around your body," she explained. "Not as complex as ours, but enough to help you process the crystal resonance more efficiently. It should also help conceal your presence from the pirates' sensors." After a moment's hesitation, Jack accepted. The liquid was cool to the touch, but warmed rapidly as he applied it to his skin as instructed. Within moments, a subtle shimmer began to form around his body, similar to the Luminians' bioelectric fields, but with a distinctive blue tint. The effect was immediate and profound. The overwhelming sensory input from the crystal network became ordered and manageable. Jack could still perceive the vast planetary consciousness, but now it felt like a supportive presence rather than an overwhelming flood. "This is remarkable," he said, flexing his hands and watching the field ripple in response to his movements. "I feel connected." Zephyr approached, his robes displaying patterns of approval. "The adaptation is successful. His energy signature now registers as Luminian to our senses." As they continued their journey, Jack found himself moving with new grace through the crystal terrain. The biomimetic field not only helped him navigate physically, but seemed to enhance his strategic thinking. He began to perceive patterns in the crystal network that suggested optimal approaches to disrupting the pirates' operation. By nightfall, they had reached the outer perimeter of what Aria called the Resonance Nexus, a vast basin where crystal formations reached hundreds of meters into the sky, creating natural towers that hummed with energy. "The temple lies at the center," she explained as they made camp. "Tomorrow's approach will be the most dangerous. The pirates have placed sensor arrays throughout this region." Jack studied the crystal patterns visible from their vantage point, his enhanced perception revealing subtle disturbances. They'd already begun mining operations here, he noted grimly. Small scale, probably advanced scouts. That night, as the others rested, Jack experimented with his new biomimetic field. He discovered that with concentration, he could extend it outward to interface directly with nearby crystals. Through this connection, he could sense movement and energy patterns for hundreds of meters in all directions, including the positions of 3 pirate scouts camped on the far side of the basin. Aria found him practicing and watched with interest. "You've adapted to Sheila more quickly than any of us anticipated," she said, her own field synchronizing briefly with his. The momentary connection sent a pleasant warmth through Jack's consciousness. "It feels natural somehow," he admitted. "Like capabilities I always had but never accessed." She sat beside him, her bioelectric field gently illuminating the night. "The Temple of Resonance affects all who enter it. Legend says it reveals one's true nature." She studied him curiously. "What do you think it will reveal about you, Jack Frost?" He looked toward the center of the basin, where the largest crystal spires converged. "I've been a soldier my entire adult life," he said quietly. "I'm not sure who I am beyond that." "Perhaps that's what you'll discover," Aria suggested, her field brushing against his with what he now recognized as affection. "Sometimes we must journey far from home to find ourselves." Dawn broke over the resonance nexus, bathing the crystal spires in rose-gold light that refracted into thousands of prismatic beams. Jack and the Luminians approached the temple through a series of underground passages that Aria had accessed by synchronizing her bioelectric field with specific crystal formations. "The pirates won't expect an approach from below," Jack explained as they navigated the luminous tunnels. "Their sensor technology is designed to detect spacecraft and surface movement." Zephyr's robes displayed tactical calculations as he moved alongside Jack. "Our scouts report increased activity at the mining base. A larger vessel entered orbit during the night cycle." Jack's expression darkened. "They're preparing for major extraction. We need to reach the temple before they activate their heavy equipment." The Temple of Resonance emerged before them as they exited the crystal tunnels, a structure that appeared to have grown organically from the surrounding formations rather than being built. Massive crystal columns supported a dome that pulsed with energy, creating harmony with the planet's natural rhythm. Inside, a circular chamber housed what could only be described as the heart of Lumina's consciousness, a core crystal formation that towered 20 meters high, its surface constantly shifting with patterns of light and information. "The nexus point," Aria whispered reverently, her bioelectric field intensifying in response to the overwhelming energy. "From here, we can access the entire planetary network." The Luminians formed a circle around the core, their bioelectric fields extending to connect with it and with each other. Jack joined them, his biomimetic field responding to their synchronization. As they established connection, Jack's consciousness expanded exponentially, stretching across the entire planet. He could sense every crystal formation, every living being, every disturbance in the natural harmony, including the jagged disruption caused by the pirate mining operation. "I can see them," he communicated through the network. "Main base, 22 personnel, heavy mining equipment being assembled. They're preparing to extract the largest crystal vein on the planet." Through their shared consciousness, Jack guided the Luminians in focusing the resonance energy. Rather than a direct attack, they began a subtle manipulation of the crystal frequencies, altering the quantum properties of the crystals the pirates had already harvested and integrated into their equipment. The effect rippled outward. At the mining base, sensors began malfunctioning. Communication systems emitted painful feedback loops. Mining lasers recalibrated to harmless frequencies. The pirates scrambled to identify the source of the disruption, unaware that the very crystals they sought to exploit were being turned against them. Jack pushed his consciousness further, focusing on the pirate captain's neural implants, technology that utilized crystal components similar to those being harvested. Through the resonance network, he established a direct link to the captain's augmented perception. Instead of attacking, Jack shared, flooding the captain's awareness with the reality of what the mining operation was doing to Lumina's living ecosystem. The captain experienced the planet's pain, the disruption to its consciousness, the slow death that would follow complete extraction. The effect was immediate and devastating. The captain staggered, overwhelmed by the input. His neural implants, designed for tactical advantage, now delivered perfect understanding of the consequences of his actions. Through the resonance network, Jack observed the captain's order to cease all mining operations. Confusion spread through the pirate ranks as equipment was powered down. The captain himself stood motionless, his augmented vision still processing the planetary consciousness that Jack had shared. "It's working," Arya communicated through their linked awareness. "The disruption is stopping." But as their consciousness traversed the network, Jack detected a new threat, an automated mining platform, operating independently of the main systems, was drilling toward a critical junction in the crystal network. If breached, it would trigger a cascade failure across the entire resonance system. "We need to focus all our energy there," Jack directed urgently. "Now." The Luminians redirected their collective consciousness, pouring their combined resonance into the threatened junction. Jack felt his biomimetic field straining under the pressure as they raced against the drill's advance. 3 weeks after the confrontation at the Temple of Resonance, Jack stood on a hilltop overlooking the Luminian settlement, his biomimetic field now a permanent part of him. The emergency beacon from his crashed pod had finally been detected, and a Terran rescue vessel was scheduled to arrive within hours. Arya joined him, her bioelectric field gently synchronizing with his as they watched the dual suns begin their descent. Neither spoke for several minutes, their connected consciousness communicating more than words could express. "The pirate captain has requested asylum with the Luminian Council," Arya finally said. His neural implants still retain traces of the resonance connection. He says he can never return to his former life. Jack nodded. "And the others?" "Most have departed. Some chose to stay, to help repair the damage done to the crystal networks." She turned to him, her field displaying patterns of both joy and sadness. "The matriarch has established new protocols for contact with off-worlders. Your experience has changed our understanding of the galaxy beyond our planet." Below them, the settlement had expanded to include a small diplomatic outpost where remaining pirates worked alongside Luminians to develop sustainable crystal harvesting techniques. The automated mining platform that had threatened the critical junction had been repurposed into a tool for healing damaged crystal formations. "Your military will want a full report," Arya observed. "Will you tell them everything about us?" Jack considered the question carefully. "I'll tell them about a civilization that defeated an armed threat without violence, about a planet with consciousness that extends to all its inhabitants." He smiled slightly. "I might downplay certain cultural differences to avoid misunderstandings." Arya's field rippled with amusement. "You still find our lack of clothing strange, even though you now understand its purpose." "My culture has deep programming," Jack admitted, "but I'm learning to see with new eyes." He gestured to his biomimetic field, which had gradually taken on unique patterns, reflecting his personality and experiences on Lumina. A signal chimed from the communication device the Luminians had built for him. The Terran rescue vessel had entered orbit and requested landing coordinates. As they walked back toward the settlement, Jack felt a moment of uncertainty. I don't know if I can readjust to my old life. Part of me will always remain connected to Lumina now. Aria stopped, facing him directly. Her bioelectric field extended to fully envelop his, creating a moment of complete synchronization. In that shared consciousness, Jack experienced her proposal, a formal request for him to remain as a permanent liaison between Earth and Lumina. The matriarch has authorized me to offer you a position as our first off-world ambassador, she explained when their fields separated. Your unique adaptation to our biology makes you ideally suited. From a small container, she produced a crystal pendant that pulsed in harmony with both their fields. This will maintain your connection to our resonance network, even across interstellar distances. The Terran vessel appeared in the sky above them, its engines creating a stark contrast to the subtle energies of Lumina. Jack watched it approach, feeling the weight of decision. My duty has always been to protect, he said thoughtfully. Perhaps this is how I can best fulfill that purpose. As the ship landed, Jack activated his official military communication channel for the first time since the crash. Lieutenant Jack Frost to Terran Command. I've made first contact with a previously undocumented sentient species, requesting diplomatic protocols and formal alliance considerations. He paused, looking at Aria. And personal reassignment as Earth's permanent representative to Lumina. The sun set behind them as Jack prepared to introduce two worlds to each other, one that had taught him warfare and one that had shown him a different kind of strength. His biomimetic field pulsed with certainty as he realized he'd found something he never expected in this strange world where women didn't wear clothes, a purpose beyond battle and a home beyond the stars.